I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 is the most hyped gun of 2024. I've seen more press coverage for this small gun than I have for most other small guns in a number of years. And yeah, I had a lot of worries and concerns when this gun first came out. Firstly, for me, this gun was announced after I'd already bought two brand new Smith & Wessons this year that both had defects. One that was significant enough that it had to go back to Smith & Wesson's repair center to get fixed. That was the 43C. I'll link my shooting footage of that down below. But that's a gun that they had to replace half of the integral parts on to get it working. However, I write for a gun website, and as such, I try to get my hands on new things that are popular because I know people will be asking about them. So I wanted to get a Bodyguard 2.0. This is a gun that fits right in for me. It's a small 380, very great feeling in the hand. I've got big hands, but it fits pretty well. And I'm already testing out pocket guns. This year I'm testing out two J-frames, the LCP Max and the G42. And I thought, hey, this will be perfect to pick up, right? But I was hesitant because, again, as someone who's written for a gun website, worked in media for a long time, I know how hard the media push is. I know how much shilling goes on where people are doing paid reviews and paid content. It's not a surprise. So I went into this, again, with trepidation. I got this gun at the start of August of 2024. I took it shooting the week after. I had cleaned the gun and lubricated it, and I had a series of malfunctions. That got me to do a deeper dive onto my specific gun, which also led to me looking at other people's guns and having people reach out to me to let me know about their issues. The first thing I ran into is that the gun did not shoot to the sights. When I was shooting the gun last month, the gun was shooting off to the left. I know you're probably thinking, okay, it's probably just you. I knew it wasn't me. I was taking my skill out of a lot of it, and the gun was naturally shooting to the left. Well, lo and behold, I look and I see that my rear sight was actually slightly drifted over in the dovetail. You can see a little dent there from whenever it was drifted over at the factory or used by a machine. The issue I ran into is that I couldn't drift the rear sight in the field. I came home to my workshop here, locked the slide in my vise, I got proper brass punches and a hammer, but I could not drift this rear sight. I even tried a sight pusher tool, still didn't work. So I said, okay, that's weird and annoying. That's a minor issue, though, because the rear sight's not integral to the gun, right? I mean, it's important to have for aiming, but it's not integral to the gun. So I just drifted the front sight over. However, that then led me to the issue of, well, why was the gun having malfunctions? Is it a break-in thing, which is kind of, BS for a small gun like this? So what I did is I pulled the gun apart and started to inspect things, right? And the first thing I noticed is this, and I rolled in footage of this in my LCP Max. You can see, let me get closer, if the camera will focus, right here is the bottom part of the feed ramp. Now let me pull the barrel out of the Bodyguard here. The Bodyguard's not like a lot of small guns. It uses a two-piece feed ramp. This is much like a 1911. What this means is that when the gun's locked up, we have part of the feed ramp on the frame, part on the barrel itself, right? On most other small guns, we have a fully ramped barrel, like an LCP, a G42, a lot of the 9mm 1911s out there, so on and so forth, right? So when the gun's locked up like this, bullet feeds out of the magazine, goes into the barrel, hits the feed ramp, goes up. Well, the issue that you can probably see here, whoop, let me stabilize the camera here. You can see where there's all that brass meeting there. There is a ledge right here. And now the feed ramp is a MIM'd part, metal injection molded. If you don't know what that is, go Google it. It's a way to make a lot of small parts cheaper for a lot of companies. Smith & Wesson's been doing it for 30 plus years on their revolvers. Some companies can do MIM'd well, like HK and Glock. Some can't, like Smith & Wesson here. And I have this big ledge that was left over as part of the machining process to make that feed ramp. And what's happening is that when a bullet feeds through the magazine here, and again, empty magazine, but when a bullet feeds through the magazine, it hits the feed ramp, goes up to the barrel. What's happening is that a lot of the hollow point mouths are actually catching on that little ledge there, and then impeding function going into the barrel. I had issues with a very, very aggressive hollow point Fiocchi, which has been 100% flawless in my Glock and in my LCP Max. So I had issues there. Now, this leads to the problem that I'm running into here, why I'm sending the gun back to Smith & Wesson to have them fix it. That's something that I could hypothetically fix. Now, what I want to do is to take the barrel and try to actually mate the feed ramp a little bit better here. But that would require the gun to be partially assembled, barrel into the slide. I'm going to reassemble the slide here. And removing some of the guts of the slide so I could put hollow point ammunition in the gun without concerns of having a negligent discharge, right? To be able to test the fitment of the barrel to the, actually we'll do this here, to test the fitment of the feed ramp in the barrel, right? And this is kind of more of like a 1911 thing, but I'm thinking, well, this is a $400 gun. I don't want to have to send this thing back to Smith & Wesson immediately. We ran into an issue. We were like, okay, well, we're willing to do some work on this gun here at my little house workshop, but we can't take the slide apart. And why is that? Well, I kind of joked about it earlier. The rear sight does more than just be a rear sight on this gun. It's actually acting as your slide end plate retainer. This is very old school. A lot of the old Smith & Wesson autoloaders did that, where the rear sight held in part of the decocking assembly. And here's the issue with that. Since this gun doesn't have any tension on the striker when the slide's off the gun, they needed to have a way to keep the slide plate on there. You know, on a Glock, if you ever worked with a Glock before, it has the striker and like cups on there, and those help to keep the striker under tension while it's in the slide. So even if you pull the slide off the gun, the striker's under tension. That's not how it works in the Bodyguard here. And as such, I can't drift the rear sight, I can't take the slide apart, I can't fix it myself. So this gun's going to be going back to Smith & Wesson to get fixed. The issue I have here is that this gun is a fairly complicated design. You might be thinking, well, it's just a small pocket pistol. They did a bunch of concessions with this design to make it work in the size that it is. The example you'll see here is this cutout. If you're ever wondering what this cutout is on the Bodyguard 2.0, as I press the trigger here, you can see metal moving. That's part of the trigger bar assembly that's partially needing space on the side of the slide here to actually travel. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, like Berettas have exposed firing or trigger bars and whatnot. Sure, but this is a smaller pocket gun. This is not like a thing that's going to get you killed in the streets, but it's more so that if the gun was just a hair thicker, that would be enclosed, which would make this a better design to go into a pocket. And yeah, I know you're thinking, well, they wanted this gun to be thin and svelte, and yeah, it is, but there were some concessions to the design. The two-piece feed ramp here is one of those concessions. If the gun used a ramped barrel, it would have to be a hair taller to clear that. However, they're doing a two-piece feed ramp, which is a more complicated design to execute. And my concern, and this is the long and the short, Smith & Wesson's quality control is garbage. It's dog shit, to be precise here. I have seen so many problems with these guns. I have seen that feed ramp issue, where again, there's a ledge in there that's catching. I have seen multiple people that had the rear sight and the front sight way out of whack from the factory. I saw that Military Arms Channel, who, full disclosure, I don't like that guy very much, but he got one of these that was missing the damn ejector, right? My thing here, Smith & Wesson is an old company. They're an old company that's been trying to hit a price point for a long time, and they're publicly traded, so they're always worried about what the investors are thinking about. This is a gun that costs $400 MSRP. I don't think that Smith & Wesson is a competent enough company to be able to effectively make this design, execute the design, and then do proper quality control in this design for $400. This might sound weird, but I think they should charge more money for this and actually make the guns work out of box. And I know you're thinking, well, Paul, this is a brand new gun. It's a Generation 1 gun. What did you expect? I expected some issues, don't get me wrong. The issue I have is that that should not be the norm for how gun companies work in this country. It's a shame that they're doing that, but also the fact that people are kind of buying into it and saying, well, that's what you get, that's not right. So the long and the short is I would like this gun, but it has design issues that I think are a problem. I think that the rear sight holding in the slide plate's bad. I'm not a fan of the trigger bar coming out the side, but that's whatever. The issue I have is that if the gun worked, this would be different. But since I had reliability issues caused by poor quality control and poor machining, I'm pretty unhappy with how that executed. So this isn't a review. I'm not saying that this is the end-all be-all for content for this gun because I own it. This is not a gun that was sent to me to test. This is one that I went out and spent my own money to buy. This is going to be going back to Smith & Wesson to get fixed. I'm going to be doing a write-up here on the website to show some more detailed photos of what's going on with the gun. But I wanted to get a video out there because I had seen so much positive content on this gun. And I'm sure that there are people who have guns that work totally fine. But the issues I've seen, for as many guns I've seen that work great, I've seen just as many that have the issue with the feed ramp, the issue with the sights. I've had people contact me on YouTube and Discord, and even one contacted my website, my email on my website. And it's just a shame that Smith & Wesson can't make things correctly. Again, I am 3 for 3 for Smith & Wesson guns that are defective this year, and 2 for 3 that have to go back to the factory. So it's just a damn shame, because this is a gun that I really wanted to like. It has all the things that should make it a top-tier small NPE gun or pocket gun. But the issue I'm running into is just that Smith & Wesson, I don't think that they're capable enough to execute this design with the consistency that a pocket gun that people are staking their lives on really demands. So yeah, for the short term, do not buy one of these. If you do really have that bug to buy one, inspect it as much as you can at first. If it has that big old divot in the feed ramp where there's that ledge leading up to the feed ramp, maybe don't buy that one. So yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll link all of my Bodyguard videos in a playlist down below, and I'll link the Smith & Wesson 43C issues I had down below. And whenever the article on this goes up, I'll be sure to link that too. So thank you for watching.